we could have some folks shut the doors to the auditorium and we'll get started. No takers on the doors? We'll begin the class with a prayer. I've asked Ted to say the prayer. I don't know if everybody knows this, but Valencia Pitt spent yesterday at the hospital. She's been diagnosed with a hiatal hernia, and of course Jim and Valencia covered our prayers, and of course remember Jim and Phyllis. So Ted, would you mind opening our class with a prayer? Thank you, Ted. So we've been studying during March and April matters involving elders in anticipation of going through the process of selecting elders this summer to replace those who will be going on the church plant. Thought it would be a good time just to kind of walk through the process again, remind everyone what we can expect probably in June. And first, I just thought I'd maybe just spend a moment talking about how Margaret Street has conducted the process of installing elders. Well, I tell you, it's on. I think maybe the speakers are not working. So I'll just do my best to speak up and try not to actually shout. Okay? Okay, well, maybe that'll help. Maybe that'll help. All right. User error. So, to my memory, and I was here when the first elders were selected, at least through me, I was the last one selected with the old process. What the elders would do after the first set of elders were selected, installed, is that when they felt like it was time to ask for new elders, they would actually internally look at the men of the congregation, select one or more names of those they felt were qualified. I'm sure they interviewed them ahead of time to make sure they were willing, and then place the names of those candidates before the congregation and solicit comment. And I believe that specifically asked for any comment from members of the congregation that if you have any reason why an elder could not serve for scriptural reasons. And I think that process took place through the 70s, the 80s, 90s, up to the year 2000. That process changed in the mid-2000s when additional elders were selected. And it is the process that's been followed in the last 12, 13 years. First, it would be announced to the congregation publicly for several weeks that the elders are soliciting recommendations from the congregation for elder candidates. Those recommendations have been requested to be in writing, and if you would, to set forth your reasons why you think that person would be a good candidate, and then to sign it. Once that process is over with, the recommendation period is closed, the elders would look through the names of those men who are recommended, study them. Now, what would be found, Lisa, and I've been a part of this, is that sometimes there would be recommendations for men that just clearly were not qualified. And their names would be put before the elders for one, perhaps the people recommending them just were not aware of information the elders were aware of, or simply were not aware sufficiently of elder qualifications. It has not been a difficult process selecting men to place before the congregation. It seems that those men who are most qualified would be the ones that would be the most recommended. And then the elders would also consider family and temperament, but I don't think that's really been an issue so far in the last 15 years. Once these names and men have been selected or considered, the elders would interview those candidates to make sure they were willing, if there were anything that those candidates felt they needed to tell us. And if the candidates were willing, we'd put the names before the congregation, give the congregation a couple of weeks again to make comment on whether or not they were aware of any reasons, scriptural reasons why these men should not serve. Ask again that the comment be in writing and signed. And then hopefully the process would end with the installation of elders. I think we can anticipate this summer that that's the process that will be followed, perhaps in June or July. Actually, our classes are going to end, I think, with Sammy Long's class, which is the first Sunday in June, in which he's going to come down from Montgomery and talk to us about elder wives. So have someone who's not a part of our congregation handle that subject. So that is the reason why we are conducting this class, because it's a very important process. It's very important to Margaret Street. Margaret Street will need new elders by the end of the summer. So we need to be as informed about elder qualifications. We need to be thinking about those who would recommend, and men who see themselves as potentially qualified need to be thinking about, are they willing to serve? And if not, why not? And if so, be thinking about in anticipation of that service. We've covered so far how the eldership is supposed to work versus how we actually work, and some of the difficulties and hurdles that we have to meet. The whole concept of desiring the office, character requirements, leadership requirements, husband and one wife. Some of the remaining classes we're going to have to do with faith requirements, believing children, as I mentioned, elder wives. But just thought it'd be a good moment in time to hit the pause button. Let's remind ourselves about why we're going through this whole process, why all of the adults have been asked who aren't teaching to be a part of this class. So let me just pause again. Is there anybody who would like to make any comments about the anticipated selection process at this point? You good with it? Mr. Joe. Well, I'm not sure how it would apply either. You know, apostolic times, the apostolic authority. We have to go through some kind of process. And I gave this a little thought this morning and yesterday when I was thinking about this. You know, we don't have a democracy in the church. We not only have the qualifications for elders, but the couple of scriptures that talk about elder oversights and elders ruling well. If you were to read 2 Peter 5:2, it talks about those elders who exercise oversight. 1 Timothy 5:17, those elders who rule well. I think it seems to us that it is scriptural and consistent with biblical authority that at the end of the day, somebody has to make a final decision rather than just have a vote. And it seems that that final decision would be appropriate for the elders. I can tell you that this group of elders feels like the more input we can get from the congregation, the better off we are, collective wisdom. Beyond that, we certainly need elders who the congregation will accept. So I don't know if I can answer your question, Joe, about a better way to do it. We certainly don't have Paul and his minions running, going around appointing elders. We do have qualifications, and somehow we are supposed to go through that process and make sure men that are elders meet them. If there's a better way to do it, I think our ears are always open. Yes, Joe.
I've been here a long time. It seems to me that when you're a deacon, you start with a deacon, then you work up to an elder because he's got the experience and all the groundwork qualifications.
Yep, that's a good point. Basically, a proving ground is deaconship. Jennifer, you had something to say? And there will be and have been men who have declined to accept the opportunity, either because they did not think at that moment in time in their life